Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Ashley McClure. I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors of Climate Health Now. I'm really excited. I'm really actually especially excited about this meeting because there's been a ton of work going into the preparation for it, and now we're like ready to invite people to join into what we've been working on in the past few months. So with that prelim, we would love if you want to write in the chat your name, pronouns if you want, and where you're zooming in from across California. And today we'll focus on Climate Health Now's 2024 advocacy campaigns, of which there are 4, and most importantly, how you can get involved. So this is our North Star. Our North Star mission, we always like to review every month, is that we organize and mobilize the California health community to advocate for equitable systems level climate action. That's what we're all about, and all of our efforts are towards that goal. So briefly, what we'll do for the next hour together, and thank you for spending it with us. A little welcome to any new members. We'll go through each of our 4 advocacy campaigns. They're all state level, and we're going to have 4 kind of allies join, whether from ally community-based organizations or actually some staff from different elected officials' offices. So we'll go through those in great detail. And that'll be the bulk of it. And after each one, we'll have time to talk. So there'll be built-in conversation after each one. And then we'll finish with talking about our CHN Speaks team and invite any and all of you to join if you want support on giving perhaps your first or your second talk about climate health and equity to colleagues. And then we'll wrap up with upcoming opportunities. So we love to start by inviting anybody who's joining for the first time to one of our community meetings to come off mute, to share your name, pronouns if you want, share what kind of health work you do, which we define very broadly, from clinical work to public health to healthcare administration, anything in health, and then where you live and work. So any new members want to jump off mute and say hi? Maybe Geneva and Jasper, if you're able.
How do you go off the mute?
Sorry, my we could come back to maybe Gary Stewart. Or anybody who's joining for the first time, you're welcome.
Terry.
My name's Terry Olson. I live in San Diego, and I'm retired from public health and nursing, both. And I live in San Diego.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome to the South. Good. Glad you're here. Anybody else want to say hi?
Josh Novick. I think this may be your first meeting. Do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi. I'm a retired physician and I'm living in Grass Valley, up north.
Wonderful. I'm coming your way soon for the Strawberry Music Festival.
Oh yeah, it's not far from where I live.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, maybe if you want to come on, Gary, Stewart, looks like maybe Geneva and Jasper.
Oh, hi, I'm the father of Geneva and Jasper. Sorry, it went on on my kids' lessons. It's still showing there as my ID. But I'm Michael Fuller. I'm a psychiatrist. I work in Oakland. Nice to meet everybody.
Wonderful. Welcome. So you're leading with probably why you're joining with your kids.
Yeah.
That's great. Good. Glad you're here. Good. Okay. Okay, we have to invite Joy to the World to chime in if you want. That's what it says.
Hi, my name is Joyce, and I live in San Pablo, California, Contra County, and I work as a medical assistant at Kaiser.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank
We're glad you're here. Okay, good. Well, yeah, we do these meetings once a month, and oh my gosh, there's going to be so many opportunities for new folks to join in. So it's a perfect time to be joining. So we always like to kind of orient around. Amanda, could you help out with the muting? Around kind of if the focus of the meeting is around the head, part of how we're trying to achieve our goals, or the head or the heart part, more the narrative and like the kind of emotion, the values that we're motivated by. And today is really on the head and the strategy and how we're trying to advocate for state level solutions this year. So that's where we are. We're in the head, but we'll include our heart for sure. And I'm going to pass it to Amanda to give an overview of our campaigns, and then we'll go deeper into them with our allies from other groups.
Thank you, Ashley. Nice to see everyone. I'm Amanda Milstein. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also one of the co-founders of Climate Health Now. No one ever in the world will accuse me of being a graphic designer, but I did create this very poor graphic just to introduce you all to these campaigns. So we're going to be hearing today about 4 different campaigns, and these are what we're going to be working on for this year, with the hope that they stay alive and active. SB 252 is about getting CalPERS and CalSTRS to divest their pensions from fossil fuels. Vanessa Forsyth and Kina Fuller are our 2 CHN members leading that campaign. ACA 16 is a proposed amendment to the California Constitution that would provide guarantee a right to a healthy environment. And that campaign is being led also by Vanessa and Hina, plus Zoe Novick. AB 1866 is a bill that would essentially require oil and gas drillers to come up with a plan to mediate their kind of abandoned wells so that they're not leaking methane and other toxins into the environment. That is being led by Alex Chang, as well as Thea, who is on the call. And then last but certainly not least is the work to keep SB 1137 the law, which will be on all of our November ballots, which is to ensure that we have setbacks between oil and gas drilling and sensitive receptors. And that is being led by Noma, as well as Dennis.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. And we're going to go into greater depth. And then, after we talk about each one, we'll share how to get in touch with these team co-leaders if you want to help with specific campaigns. So that's our people. We call these our advocacy campaign co-leads. So ACC is what you might see them referred to. They're an amazing group of people. So we're going to kick it off by, let's see, Michelle has not joined us yet. Michelle is joining from Assemblymember Bryan's office. Maybe we'll go to the next one. Amanda, would you mind emailing Michelle? Make sure she has a Zoom. So we'll come back to this one. Just a teaser. Oh geez, here we go. So then I'm wondering if, do you think, Holland, would you mind talking first about AB 1866?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, wonderful.
Ashley.
Yay.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Holland Kretzman with the Center for Biological Diversity. I'm an attorney. I've been working on California oil and gas laws for the last decade plus, and I'm here to tell you about AB 1866 by Assemblymember Hart. So Jimmy from Hart's office unfortunately couldn't be here, so I'm going to pinch hit for him. I'm going to describe the problem for you real quickly, and then let you know how AB 1866 addresses those problems. So as you all know, California, despite its green reputation, is a major oil and gas producing state. We've got about 100,000 unplugged oil and gas wells spread out across the state, and about 40,000 of those are idle wells. They don't produce oil and gas anymore, and they haven't produced oil and gas in the last 24 months. And then the remaining 60,000 active wells are going to become idle in the near future as California's production winds down. Oil and gas companies are legally and financially responsible for the cleanup of those wells. Unfortunately, they prefer to spend as little as possible on that kind of remediation and instead shower their executives and shareholders with as much money as they can until they approach the end of the line, and then they declare bankruptcy and try to walk away from these legal obligations. And so there's a big danger here that in addition to the environmental harm that these idle wells can cause, that there's a financial risk that taxpayers might have to foot the bill for what's estimated to be about $21 billion worth of cleanup costs that should fall on the companies that have profited from these extraction projects, but so far haven't come up with the money to do so. Under current state law, they're supposed to put up a bond. Those bonds have a cap of $30 million, and that's not nearly enough to cover the cost of well plugging and surface remediation. And in fact, the state oil and gas regulator doesn't require that much. Most major companies have about a $3 million bond to cover all of their wells, and that works out to about 80 to $100 per well, as opposed to the actual cost of cleanup, which runs from 200,000 up to $1 million per well. So what can we do about it? That's where AB 1866 comes in. This bill would fix our current broken system that got us into this mess in the first place. It would eliminate the option for oil and gas companies to pay a nominal fee to keep their idle wells sitting there unattended. Right now, it's about $150 per year. So you can't pay the fee anymore. You actually have to plug a portion of your wells, and depending on how big an operator you are, you have to plug 10 to 20% of your existing idle wells every year. Under the current system, like I said, you can either pay the fee to plug 0% of your wells per year, or you can submit what's known as an idle well management plan, where you can plug 4 to 6% of your oldest idle wells. So this would bump that up to 10 to 20% a year. It's ambitious, but it's doable. And I like to call this bill a quadruple win for the state, because you got your first win where it protects frontline communities from the fugitive gas that's coming from these unplugged wells. We saw a lot of those in Bakersfield and the surrounding area last couple of years. Protects our climate. 2/3 of these idle wells are leaking methane, a super polluter when it comes to the climate, as you all know. Number 3, it protects our state budget, because we're putting the onus on the industry to clean up their mess rather than taxpayers. As I mentioned, that's $21 billion at stake here. And number 4, it's a job creator. If we get the industry to really ramp up their remediation activities, it's going to create more than 50,000 jobs across the state. And these jobs are in the exact communities that are going to be affected most by our transition from fossil fuels to a sustainable future. And there's a lot of skills overlap in the industry. So, when the oil industry is winding down and shedding jobs, we need to take care of those communities and those workers. Plugging these wells is a great way to do that. So I'm happy to answer any questions. That's a quick overview, but anxious to get everybody's support on AB 1866.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was like crystal clear. I like the quadruple bottom line. We talk about the triple bottom line or triple aim in healthcare a lot. So yeah, it is both infuriating that companies are doing that and really invigorating to get involved. Yeah, we have a good 5 minutes if anybody has questions. We have everything to learn from Holland, and I think Amanda mentioned this, but Alex and Thea will be the co-leads, kind of liaison for CHN to the coalition, working to help pass AB 1866. So we have a form if anybody wants to, specifically get involved in this one. And if you fill that out, then we will very quickly get you connected to Alex and Thea and Holland and the whole coalition. So yeah, any questions?
Larry here. I've read the bill. It's to submit a plan. What is there for enforcement if they don't comply?
Yeah, so great question. The bill, as you said, requires every oil company to submit a plan. If they're a smaller oil company, that means you pick out 10% of your idle wells, tell the state which ones you're going to plug. If you're one of the bigger ones like Chevron, that requirement is 20%. And if you do not plug the minimum number of idle wells, you owe the state of California a civil penalty in the amount of the cost of plugging those remaining wells. So if you fall 10 wells short of your minimum, you owe the state the amount of money it would cost to plug those 10 wells.
Seems like a appropriate fine. Awesome. And I think Gary's hand is up. Go ahead. Thank you.
And I'm wondering what the opposition is saying to say this is not a good idea. What is the fossil fuel industry line on why we should not be doing this?
Yeah, great question, Gary. That's a very interesting one because the usual opposition to any oil and gas law is jobs, jobs, jobs. But for this one, they don't have that argument because our bill creates tens of thousands of jobs, right? There are studies that show plugging wells, every $1 million you invest in that creates 2.4 million. And then there's even bigger multipliers if you account for pollution cleanup and the surface remediation that these sites are going to require. So what do they have left? It's pretty weak, but they will say that, well, some of these wells aren't actually that dangerous. And in fact, they're future assets. We could be using them for carbon capture and storage. That's an unproven technology and a false solution to the climate crisis. Or maybe in the future, there are these projects where we might use a gravity-assisted weight to generate electricity. We're pretty skeptical of those kinds of projects. Leaving these wells unplugged creates all kinds of dangers for nearby communities. So the best solution that we see is to plug these wells. If you really want to invest in renewable energy, solar and wind, there's plenty of projects that are ready to go that don't require you to leave this giant hole in the ground unplugged.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, that sounds pretty speculative.
Mhm.
Those kind of arguments sound pretty speculative and kind of a reach. Do they say that they can't afford it? I guess maybe that argument's not maybe quite open to them because supposedly they're supposed to have set aside enough money to carry this out.
Yeah, that's a dangerous line for them because they don't want to signal that their financial situation is so precarious, because that's all the more reason to boost the requirements now while they still have some chance of meeting those requirements, rather than kicking the can down the road. They declare bankruptcy and all of a sudden it's the public's problem.
Yeah. I think maybe we'll take Anne's question from the chat and then we'll go to the next one. But in that, I heard a strong health talking point, Holland, about the health impacts of the wells and, really centering that. So sounds like an opportunity for us. So I see Anne's question in the chat says, what happens to a corporation that doesn't submit a plan to remediate?
Well, I think the state oil and gas regulator would have the ability, existing authority to, order them to submit a plan or, come up with a plan themselves and tell the company which wells that they need to plug, or maybe give them a deadline to plug a minimum number of wells. But the state oil and gas regulator has pretty broad authority to enforce the laws and regulations in, straightforward or creative ways. So we would expect them to use that authority in this case as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Holland. It's really nice to meet you. We look forward to working closely together this year, especially Alex and Thea, who will be part of the coalition. So really grateful to be joining you.
Thank you for the invitation. And
Thank you.
yeah, please let me know if anyone has follow-up questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have as this bill moves forward.
Awesome. Forward to the governor's desk. So then we're going to go to, so I see Michelle is here from Assemblymember Brian's office. So we're going to go back to ACA 16 and welcome Michelle and to talk about the California Green Amendment. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Persoff. I am a senior field representative for Assemblymember Isaac Bryan. I also am a legislative aide that I'm based in our district office in Culver City. And I am the staffer, one of the staffers for the Green Amendment. As many of you know, probably, Assemblymember Bryan is chair of the Natural Resources. And before I forget, I want to thank Megan for coming up to Sacramento to be with us on the hearing day. So I wanted to give kind of the timeline as well of where we are. So firstly, we are not the first state to pass a green amendment. There has been green amendments in Pennsylvania, Montana, and as of a few years ago, New York. Our language is almost exactly the same as the state of New York's. And there are multiple states across the country that have green amendments introduced and are in various stages of the process. And that brings us to, when was it? The 8th of April, when we were in Sacramento and the Natural Resources Committee heard ACA 16. And that was passed with 7 ayes and 1 no. We have enjoyed a very large support coalition. And in this picture that you see here, we gathered as many supporters as we could to join the press conference that happened right before that hearing. So with an amendment, this would be an amendment to the state constitution. With any amendment, if it gets passed out of the state legislature, then it goes to the ballot for all Californians to vote on. So even if we are successful in getting this through the legislature, then it has this next step where we really rely on supporters throughout the state, which is why kind of building this coalition from an early start, it was important to us because we want the word out as soon as possible. And if it passes out of the legislature, it would be on this November's ballot. And so from where we are now, after it passed out of Natural Resources, we are going to appropriations next, where it will be analyzed for fiscal impact. And then we would head over to the Senate if it makes it out of appropriations. And why it's important, thank you for having these bullet points, because I forgot to say that. So during the previous administration, the Trump administration, there were a few things that were rolled back or attempted to be rolled back. And really the point we want to drive is that California is a leader in climate policy, and we do not want that to go backward. And we want to make sure that our state is going to stay in the position that it has been, and really push anybody moving forward to remember that, including any potential changes in perspective in the White House and the federal government. And this is seen as a protection. We have various rights to reproductive health that we've passed in California, who you would like to marry, being able to have the right to clean air, water, and a healthy environment, which is exactly what the amendment says. It's as simple as that. Is something that the Assembly member and many of our supporters believe to be a right that we should enshrine in the California Constitution as well. And as far as key opportunities in the campaign, I mentioned way down the line. As far as the appropriation strategy goes, it's kind of up in the air right now because we don't know if it's going to be held on suspense or not, which means we don't know if it's going to be heard or if it's going to be part of the large group of bills that they kind of just go through quickly. And in that case, then we wouldn't have presenters, and generally you don't do the Me Too's in Appropriations Committee. But if we move on to the Senate, we would be going to probably their Natural Resources Committee. And it would be just as the same as it was in the Assembly, where we will want support. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put my email address in the chat, but also the three people who are the leaders on this can probably also just be my point people.
Yeah.
But we do want as many people supporting as possible. So there will be opportunities to either go to Sacramento or submit letters of support, or contact your legislators about the bill. And I will follow up on that, but it would be very appreciated.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for the overview. And yeah, we have our time allocated for some questions. I see one hand in the chat while we can get some expert input from Vanessa. Go ahead.
Michelle, do you have a date for when it has to come out of appropriations or not?
The deadline for bills to make it out of appropriations, I think, is May 17th. So the 2 weeks before that are the hot times.
Early May. Great question, Vanessa. And then I see Anne's hand is up too.
Hi, thanks. This looks great. And I'm just, I last week attended a town hall about the ACA 10 for California to have a constitutional right to adequate housing as a human right. And I see Brian is a co-author. That's the same Assembly member, Brian, who's authoring this one?
He's the only Brian.
Okay, that's great, because I was worried these things might compete, but I assume you guys are coordinating somehow to push both of them. And I know that this is climate health now, but this is health, and housing is a big part of that. So I'm wondering if those could go together somehow in the messaging.
Yeah.
Or not.
So I'll speak to that as far as I will also say it's kind of limited how, from where I sit now, what I can speak to when it comes to elections. There is always a concern of what is on the ballot and things kind of taking attention from one another. One thing that will also be on the ballot this November is the referendum on SB 1137. So we see this as a great opportunity to not only have the opportunity to show big oil that yes, in fact, California does want to protect our health and safety zones. And let's go the extra step by saying, in fact, we care so much about our environment that we want to enshrine it in our Constitution. So in that, great. In that perspective, it's definitely something that has been thought of. As far as ACA 10 is concerned, I am not in any of those conversations if they have happened. And it's possible that it's not something that is being discussed very heavily yet because, you know, we're trying to focus on getting it out, or they're trying to focus on getting it out of the legislature. But absolutely, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think maybe Amanda will take your question and then we'll go to the next.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Michelle, thank you so much. My question is about, my understanding is that in Montana, this having their constitutional guarantee to a healthy environment is what predicated the Youth versus the Youth versus Montana climate lawsuit. Is that right? And can you speak to that is this part of the strategy in California?
In the Montana language is different from what we have. I believe it's much more specific. Maybe it's as far as that suit goes, I'm not positive. I know that there has been various suits that have occurred. It's the ratio we have is like 3 to 10, I think, a year. And the objective for this is not to spur a bunch of lawsuits. It's to kind of provide the protection that we might need from the federal government. But we definitely, as far as messaging goes, we want to focus on the fact that this is something that we feel strongly about in California to protect. But we're not hoping to invite a bunch of lawsuits, no.
That's probably bad messaging anyway. Awesome. Yeah, that was a great question, Amanda. I was wondering that too. So thank you, Michelle. We're really excited to be connected to you and working in the coalition around this amendment. And Amanda, I put this is our Climate Health Now's form in the chat. So if you're like, oh, this is what I want to work on this year, we need you. And this form that Amanda put in the chat, that's how we're kind of funneling people towards their greatest interest. And then we'll connect you to Hina, Vanessa, and Zoe, who are the team co-leaders that will be liaisoning with the coalition for the amendment. So just share your interest in the form, and thank you again so much, Michelle. We'll spare your inbox with sharing your email with everybody, but we will connect people to you in the interest of getting this passed. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being involved, and I look forward to getting you an update.
Awesome. Great. And then we're going to move to our third state level campaign with Miriam Eide, who I hope I'm saying that right, who I remember seeing in San Francisco at a youth climate strike, maybe the first one that I was a part of way back in September of 2019. Way back in some ways, not others. But anyway, Miriam, we're really glad you're here. Miriam's the Executive Director of Fossil Free California, and we'll turn it over to you to share about SB 252.
Thank you. Yeah, so As Ashley mentioned, my name is Miriam. I use they, them pronouns, and I've been with Fossil Free California working on CalPERS and CalSTRS divestment now for a few years. Currently, Fossil Free California is the co-sponsor of this bill, which would mandate that the two state pensions, the teachers' retirement and the public employees' retirement system, divest from fossil fuels by the year 2030. And in total, that's a divestment of over $13 billion from fossil fuels. This bill is currently in its second year, so it was introduced in 2023, and it is through the Senate and pending hearing in the Assembly Retirement Committee. And then I think just good context is that these two pensions are the first and second largest pensions in the whole country and hold huge leadership positions in international sustainable finance worlds. So pushing these pensions to divest from fossil fuels has big implications on what is seen as the gold standard of sustainable financing worldwide. So I would say it's the first of a domino.
Mic drop. The whole world. That's amazing. Wow. So that's part of why it's important.
Totally. Yeah. So I think going into like, why are we working on fossil fuel divestment in particular? I think that when I was thinking about what I wanted to say to you all, a particular story that I heard from somebody yesterday came to mind. I was working with this teacher who's trying to get a resolution for divestment passed in her school. And she reached out to me just very disappointed that the timeline was pushed back by a month. And she is in Rodeo area, so North Bay area. And her school is right next to the ConocoPhillips refinery. And she was saying that there's just so many teachers who get cancer and who are constantly fighting the impacts of pollution, and the asthma is a given for a lot of the students in the school. So I looked up out of curiosity. I was like, how much does her pension, CalSTRS, invest in that same refinery? $130 million of her pension money going to the same refinery that is hurting her and her school. So I think this is just like a really good example of what those impacts look like. Yeah, thanks for that context. And then the CalPERS pension, for anyone who might be a PERS beneficiary, has $184 million in ConocoPhillips. This really dwarfs the amount of money that they have in things like Chevron or Exxon, which are also huge producers and refiners in the state of California. Just this past year, we published a map on our website that shows that there's 90,000 wells in California that our pensions are invested in, the companies owning them. It's absolutely stunning to then turn on, there's a filter on this map that shows the 3,200 foot setbacks. And the vast majority of those same wells are also within 3,200 feet of our communities. So there's a very, very direct connection between our pensions funding the destruction of our communities. And to me, I think that's where you all come in. There's very few people who, aside from those who are personally experiencing the health impacts, who can speak so clearly to why fossil fuels are killing us and help to draw that connection to why we need to see divestment happen. And then I think that the other constituency that we don't see here today as much, but is also important, is the people who are making that financial argument. What they've shown us is that pensions, our pensions, CalPERS and CalSTRS, would have made over $10 billion more over a 10-year period had they divested from fossil fuels 10 years ago. This is not future returns. This is past returns that they missed out on. Fossil fuels are underperforming. It's shown in so many different ways. So we need to get out of fossil fuels. So all of that to say, how can you take action? How can you participate? The number one thing is we're asking people to reach out to their legislator. I'll put it in the chat in just a moment. There is an ask for calls and for emails. Do both, do them every month. We really need to keep that pressure on. In addition, as I mentioned before, we really need spokespeople, people who can speak to that impact. If you see yourself as a spokesperson, reach out, fill out your campaign interest form. Also reach out to me and I can help plug you in. I think it'd be great to get a strong op-ed or some sort of piece in the news that we can keep pointing to and highlight health perspectives on divestment. And then last but not least is going to be unions. I know many of you might be in a union. If you are, We only have one health workers union currently on board with divestment, that's CNA. If it's any other union, please help us get them on board. You're great advocates. And you can reach out to me. I have a lot of experience working with unions building support. I'll put my email in the chat. So thank you all so much.
Wow, can we just get a little Zoom hand raise? Is anybody part of a union other than CNA in your? That's interesting. Physicians, I know I've talked to some about unionizing, and a lot of people think it's illegal. So there's not a lot of unionizing in physicians, but I think a lot of other health groups have kind of woken up to the power of them. But that's a really interesting point of getting unions to sign resolutions in support. So lots of opportunities. Thank you so much, Miriam. We have some time. Oh, Jen. Yeah, I remember being jealous about Santa Clara Valley. So that could be a really cool opportunity. Yeah, we have time for questions. I see one hand. Who's that? Whoever you are, come on off mute.
It's Ross.
Hey, Ross. Yeah.
I just was raising my hand that I'm in a union, and
Oh,
I
cool.
put it in the chat.
Awesome.
You're with SEIU, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we would love to explore that possibility with you if you're interested. Same with you, Jen.
Yeah.
Sure. I would be happy to talk to you about it.
Cool. I see Vanessa's hand, and then we'll go to Gary.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about SEIU. Have they been approached? I mean, because they definitely represent a lot of the CalPERS, and then the California Teachers Association.
Yeah, I would say you've hit the nail on the head in terms of those key unions. So SEIU 1000 represents over half of our CalPERS beneficiaries. SEIU has unfortunately been pretty slow on the uptake and has started from a position of we think divestment's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's just a lot of internal conversation within SEIU about what they think about divestment. Currently, there's slated to be a vote in SEIU 1000 this June on supporting divestment. There's a lot of organizing there. So if you have contacts, it's a really key point for us to be building power there. CTA, or California Teachers Association, on the CalSTRS side is also really key. We have California Federation of Teachers, and we've got I think 7 other statewide unions on board with divestment, but the CTA has been very slow on the pickup, largely because their lobbyist is very opposed to divestment personally. We find that an individual can slow down processes a lot.
Yeah.
That being said, just 2 weeks ago, I was at the state teachers event, or their council, and 2/3 of the state teachers delegates stood up in support of a bigger discussion and a vote on divestment on the floor after the students from Oakland have been there now for 9 straight state councils calling for support for divestment. So it's been an incredible shift to see, and we might be seeing them stand up in support of divestment in June as well. So lots of
Give me
Okay. And then there's
Miriam.
somebody said about that the residents have a union too.
Yeah, I see Jen mentioned that about Sanford residents. Yeah. All right, we got some follow-up for Hina and you, Vanessa. The work is becoming apparent. Awesome. I see Gary's hand, and then we'll go to the next campaign after that. Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thanks. I had a question as to whether these pension funds have a policy on ESG and the application of ESG in terms of their investment in the fossil fuels, in light of the social costs that these companies are offloading. They're basically privatizing their profits and socializing their harms. If these pension plans had any sort of ESG viewpoint at all, then that would really not support investing in these companies. And combining that with the actually kind of like declining profitability that these companies are promising to face in the next decade. That also seems to be, just from a dollar standpoint, a reason to be moving away from them. So those 2 points, if you have any remarks about that.
Yeah, great point. So ESG, or environmental and social governance, is a huge kind of buzzword in the investment space right now. And we're seeing a lot of right-wing pushback on it, trying to deny funds the right to invest their funds according to their knowledge of the environment and knowledge of social policies. Generally speaking, ESG is a good step in the right direction, and we have seen that CalPERS and CalSTRS are both moderately interested, if not moderately committed, to ESG investment strategies, but I would say it's a far cry from the standard that they really need to be holding. Their own assessments are showing that their investment strategies would bring global warming over 4 degrees. So it's a little horrific to watch them knowingly say that over and over and not do a whole lot about it. I will say, though, we've seen our divestment work make pretty big strides in terms of their willingness to push the envelope on sustainable investing. And just this past November, CalPERS put out one of the most progressive sustainability plans in the world, which included a pretty substantial investment in renewables and solutions. But it still refused to get rid of the drivers of the climate crisis, which is primarily fossil fuels. So.
Yeah, awesome. We're blowing up with ideas in the chat. So Miriam, Vanessa, Hina will be in touch. Fill out that form, y'all, if you want to get involved in this campaign or any of the others. Thank you so much, Miriam, for joining. We're excited to be working with you. And we're going to turn to Marjane, who will be talking about Climate Health Now's 4th campaign of the year, which is a complicated one, and we'll leave it to Marjane to explain. And thank you for being with us.
Hi guys. So I think most people on this call are already aware of the health and safety buffer zone around oil and gas drill sites. So this has been a battle for decades almost that has been led by environmental justice organizations to actually push back against fossil fuel drilling in neighborhoods and around schools and hospitals. So after much organizing and much scientific research and the scientific advisory panels for the state that actually came out and said oil and gas drilling is proven to cause, it definitely does cause poor birth outcomes and respiratory ailments. So it wasn't like saying, oh, perhaps it's associated with, it's like the strongest language a public health expert can use. The state passed the law last year that banned oil and gas drilling within 3,200 foot of homes and schools and other hospitals and other places that are listed under sensitive receptors. After that, the oil companies spent about $20 million, got paid signature gatherers. They lied through their teeth and told people that actually this bill is totally something else. And they got to collect enough signatures to put this law into the ballot measure. So in November, we're all going to be voting whether to keep the law or not keep the law. And the reason the language is so clear is because last year, we all organized and fought really hard to pass another bill to make sure that the language of the ballot is actually clear. So they can't beat around the bush. They have to say, this is the law, we're keeping the law or not keeping the law. So that's very critical that we all send that message to everybody. And so health professionals are organizing to help, and we are a trusted messenger in this. And we just want to highlight the health harms of oil and gas drilling, the healthcare cost from oil and gas drilling, and health harms. And there's going to be a lot of organizing. We already have a health professional organizing group. If anybody wants to join, tell folks know. And there's also a health professional letter that Amanda has shared a couple times. If anybody hasn't signed, if you can, that'd be great. We already have 400 signatures. We're hoping to gather at least 1,000 or more to create some buzz. American Lung Association has already endorsed the campaign, and we're working with other organizations, health organizations, to get their endorsement as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marjane. And I know you have a lot of family stuff going on, so especially thank you for making time. I just want to call out, so the link that Amanda just put in the chat, the Secure Every Action, that's a link to the health professional letter supporting, the law, wanting to keep the law. So has anybody not signed that yet? If you could raise your hand, it would be really meaningful to sign it. And then if you're motivated, maybe share it with a colleague or two towards the goal, like Marjane said, of 1,000 signers to get some earned press about all these health people talking about how we need to, protect people from oil and gas. So that would be awesome. And then internally, Climate Health Now's liaisons to this campaign will be Dennis and Noma. I saw for sure Noma's here with us. I didn't see Dennis, but they will be kind of the ones sharing about opportunities to get involved. So use your trusty campaign interest form to express your interest, and we will link you in. And then I also just wanted to underscore what you said, Marjane, about the equity issues. And I think when we look at the demographics of who lives within these setbacks, who lives within 3,200 feet of oil and gas extraction in California, it's probably a surprise to nobody that it tends to be communities of color much more than historically privileged communities. So the health equity overlay of this couldn't be more apparent, aligned with redlining and all of the racism, and so it's all the same stories, but it's really a big deal on this one. So this, unlike ACA 16, this will for sure be on the ballot. So this is going to be a big effort. So thank you, Marjane. We really appreciate you joining. And I know that was a ton of information. So the point is, we have 4 amazing campaigns. And if you don't have a day job and you want to work on all 4, we would welcome that. But if you do have a family or day job, we would really be enthusiastically grateful if you would choose one, because they're going to take a lot of work. So, but please do fill out that form. This is everybody pitching in as much as they can is going to be how we help the bigger coalitions that we're joining to win. So thank you all for filling that out. It should take a minute or 2 if you want to do that. And let's see. And then, so that's all the campaign kind of advocacy stuff. And then I'm going to pass it to Brenda to talk. Oh, Brenda popped off. Yeah, no, you're there. You're good. So Brenda's going to talk about a different team that Climate Health Now is building, an opportunity to get involved in a different way if policy's not your jam.
All right, thanks, Amanda and Ashley, and all our wonderful speakers so far. So I do want to actually center this little bit of our discussion on what we have already talked about, which is our awesome campaigns that we're starting, these coalitions we're joining. And I want to, really highlight the fact that there was amazing storytelling that was part of these campaigns, and explaining it to all of our members here and in all of us, talking with our colleagues and talking to our communities about how all of this is so important. I think everyone here can say that this is something that is important to them. You're taking a part of your busy, work day away from all your other priorities in your life to spend time with us here to talk about climate and health and join this really amazing movement. So that I think is a nice little segue to CHN Speaks. So CHN Speaks, if you haven't heard yet, is a team that has been highly anticipated for several years now even. And this team is really going to help equip our members of this organization to talk about climate health and equity. So even if you have zero experience, even putting the words climate and health together in a sentence and, showing the evidence and the values that go into having health people join the climate movement, then, this team here, it wants to provide that help and support. So we have really great co-leads who have, been willing to join this team and really grow it. We have Jeff, we have Cindy Hawk, and we have Carol. I believe Cindy and Jeff are here on this call now. They come from vast experience talking about climate and health and equity in various formats. And they're here and ready to help. And so they want to provide personalized coaching to any member of CHN to prepare and to give a talk about climate health and equity. And now I want to emphasize that, to receive this personalized coaching, all you have to do is be a member of CHN and really filling out another interest form, just so then we know that you're interested, so that we can connect you to our awesome coaches. This talk doesn't have to be something super formal. It doesn't have to be in a big auditorium with a lot of, scary people in the audience. It could be any talk at all to fellow health community peers and colleagues. And so we do have the coachee interest form ready to rock and roll here. And like I said earlier, anybody is willing or is available to fill this out and get connected with our really amazing coaches who are, on standby and want to help you grow these skills, which can be very scary to do. But I will say that really vast majority of people I've talked to who are health people who have given a talk say that it's a really energizing experience and they want to do it again. And so I'd love you to join the ranks of people who've talked about climate and health as a health person and spread the word. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda. Any questions about CHN Speaks? Okay. I can share a little teeny story that I gave a talk in Oakland. It must have been pre-COVID because it was in person. And then this Friday, one of the PAs who was in that audience, she and I and one of her colleagues are giving a talk to a different audience. So she, kind of is moving up in leadership, and it really is, like Brenda said, a meaningful addition to our work. So thank you. And as always, we invite anybody and everybody in the California health community, which we define very broadly, like I said, self-identifying in health, training for health, retired from health. We welcome them and we need them. So please invite them to join us. And then we'll connect them to our new member welcome team. And then finishing up just with some save the date. So a lot of exciting things coming up. You probably have CHN's campaign interest form by now if you want to use it. And then we have a meeting next Monday that is seeming like it's really resonating with a lot of people. So our healthcare sustainability team, led by Pam Lee and Bill Pevick, that'll be on Monday, 12:30 to 1:30, and the title is the Polyethylene Polycrisis. So treating healthcare's plastic addiction. And we would love for you to join that. And then on May 8th, we will have kind of a political advocacy themed talk with some partners. And the theme is about how the health community votes, unleashing the power of civic engagement for climate health and equity. So there's a registration for that. And then our next community meeting will be Tuesday, May 21st. We can share the registration for that. And there will be so much opportunity to get involved before these things through the different campaign co-lead teams if you want to get involved. So that's what we have coming up. And then the very last thing, I guess we're really into forms these days. But we want to just open the door for feedback. So we're just rolling out our meeting evaluation form. So if it's literally, Amanda, is it 2 questions or 4? 2 or 4?
It is 4 very quick questions, and
Very
I
quick.
realize we are really into forms. Thanks for filling out our many forms.
But if you want to say, you know, what could have been better about this hour, or what was awesome, what you loved, like what we should keep doing, we just want to, like, you know, really have a culture where we're always learning, because we are. So that's one way to do it. Or you could just email us at connect@climatehealthnow.org. So just know we want to hear what you think. And I think that's about it, everybody. So thank you. That was a whirlwind, and we really appreciate our allies who joined us, and your time. So have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.